Try to imagine yourself, if you will, as a kid in the 90s. Your family is flipping through the channels, hoping to find something to watch on Friday night. You find a show that is hosted by an actor you see on the little show called Star Trek. He presents to you several stories, some of which end up scaring the daylights out of you. But you stay tuned, because the show intrigues you so much. I don't have to imagine this, because I lived it. And that show was called Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. Created by Lynn Lehman, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction was an anthology series that aired on the Fox network from 1997 to 2002, lasting for 4 seasons. I know what you're all thinking. Shouldn't the show have 5 or 6 seasons, not 4? Well, there is a reason for this. You see, each episode of Beyond Belief aired sporadically. Sometimes they would air on different times and days from the previous season. Sometimes it would go on for weeks to months between airings. Then there was a 2-year lag between season 3 and season 4, which led many people to believe that the show was cancelled. Despite these setbacks, however, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction gained an audience, which I'm happy to say that I am a part of. But what was it that made Beyond Belief such an iconic show? I think there are 2 answers to this question. The first answer is the premise of the show. In each episode of Beyond Belief, the audience was given 5 stories. Each story had a connection to the supernatural, ghosts, psychic phenomenon, coincidences, destiny, and or other such unusual occurrences. This may sound typical, given that some of the most famous anthology series, like The Twilight Zone, Are You Afraid Dark, Goosebumps, and American Horror Story, have these elements. But what made Beyond Belief stand out was because at least 2 of the stories being told were inspired by an actual event. And it was up to you, the audience watching, to determine which stories were based on fact and which ones were just modern retellings of urban legends. Of course, this wasn't an easy task to do, and the writers and creators of the show made it that way. There would be some stories that seemed too far-fetched to be real, end up being true, while more plausible stories ended up coming from a writer's imagination. Some of the stories that were adapted for the show came from the 1966 book Range Events Beyond Human Understanding, which was written by late author Robert Trelitz. In some of the Beyond Belief episodes, Robert Trelitz is credited for his first-hand research for those true stories. Some of the stories that were labeled as fact had originated from other shows. One such case was a story called A Joyful Noise. In this story, a church choir suffers a series of setbacks that ends up saving their lives from an explosion at their church. The story was inspired by a similar incident that happened to the choir of the West End Baptist Church in 1950. The event of that case would appear in an episode of Unsolved Mysteries 8 years before Beyond Belief. As you may have noticed, Beyond Belief does make some changes when it comes to telling their true stories, which makes it more difficult to separate them from the fictional stories. Sometimes they refuse to provide information about the actual events, such as the time that they happened or the location these events took place. The first season of Beyond Belief was notorious for this lack of information. Of course, Beyond Belief had other stories that would scare the daylights out of you. Some even unnerve me to this day, such as the Mirror of Truth and the Red-Eyed Creature. Although, that still didn't stop me from adding this one joke by Doug Walker to them.
Who's there?
Zool, motherfucker, zool!
Of course, Beyond Belief had other stories that were just as memorable as its scary ones. Some stories had tear-jerkingly happy endings to downright depressing ones. There's one story that comes to mind when I think of the latter, and it's called Mystery Lock. The story focuses on Aunt Connie, played by Ellen Alberti Doe, and her nephew. Now, if the name Ellen Alberti Doe sounds familiar, then you're probably familiar with this scene.
I said hip hop, I hip it to the hip hip hop. You don't stop the rock to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie the beat.
The nephew convinces his aunt to get a new lock for her apartment, which has a strange power to make sure that bad people don't get in. Unfortunately, the nephew runs into some trouble, which leads to this heartbreaking moment.
Why would you want to hurt me?
Open the door.
Good God! How dare you do that to the rappy old lady from The Wedding Singer? Of course, Ellen Alberti Doe wasn't the only big-name guest star to appear on Beyond Belief. There was Dante Bosco, Dick Van Patten, Francis Bay, Paul Gleason, just to name a few. Oh, I cannot forget the best guest star role. The lion from Jumanji. I am not kidding. In the opening panel shot of the story called Kirby, you can see the animatronic lion head from Jumanji. And you want to know what the sad thing is? I did not realize that until I became an adult. Remember when I said that there were two answers to what made Beyond Belief fact or fiction such an iconic show? Well, the second answer is its host, Jonathan Frakes. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that means you're a fan of Star Trek and gargoyles. Frakes emits such a charm and charisma when he does this role as host. Even when he's making a silly, grown-making pun and presents a delightful smile afterwards, you can't help but not like him.
Is this story an admirable retelling of an actual event? Or is it really nothing to crow about? Did we program the truth in this tale? Or is it merely garbage in, garbage out? Do you think this mysterious tale of the grave marker a fleeting lie? Or is it carved in stone?
And apparently there were fans of the show who would play a game of guessing what kind of pun Frakes would make right alongside to figure out which stories were based on fact or fiction. And it's apparent that Frakes enjoyed his time of doing Beyond Belief. There are videos of him incorporating Beyond Belief talk when he's telling people about his time on Star Trek The Next Generation at a convention. He even did parody videos of the show where he would talk about football and the dangers of the dark web. This tells me that if Fox were to do a revival of the series and ask Frakes to host the show again, he would do it without question. Now, it should be noted that Frakes did not host the show during its first season. During the first season of Beyond Belief, the host was actor James Brolin, whom you might recognize from his work on Amityville Horror, as well as being the father of Thanos. One interesting thing that I noticed when watching the first season of Beyond Belief was that I think Brolin had filmed his segment back when the show was still being called Strange Truth, Fact or Fiction. Why do I think so? Well, when Frakes ends an episode, his usual end line would be this:
Beyond belief. Beyond belief. Beyond belief.
Brolin doesn't do this. Instead, he would say,
Strange truth. Strange truth. Yes, strange truth.
This line at the end of each episode of Season 1 tells me that at some point after filming Brolin's part of the show, the series name was changed from Strange Truth to the title we know and love today. While Brolin was fine as the show host, he doesn't have the same charisma that Frakes brought to the show. And judging by the viewing numbers between Season 1 and Season 2, Frakes brought a needed boost to the show. Sadly though, that boost only lasted for a couple more seasons. On September 5th of 2002, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction would air its final episode. But its legacy still lives on through reruns, whether on the Sci-Fi Channel, on Chiller, or in Germany? Yeah, apparently Beyond Belief aired in Germany under the title of X Factor, Des Unfassbar, where it became very successful. Well, successful may be an understatement, as Season 3 and Season 4 would air in Germany before Fox aired it here in the United States. Then there was also the fact that on November of 2018, the German channel RTL 2 will produce 2 new episodes under the title X Factor, Des Unfassbar Kurt Zurich, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the series airing in Germany. While these new episodes copied the same formula of the original show, they were panned by audiences for their low quality. But that hasn't hindered RTL 2 as they produce 4 more episodes between 2019 and 2020. These new episodes appear to have gained more favorable reviews. Now, if only we can convince Fox to bring this show back. But even if it doesn't happen, we can still enjoy the original series, and I highly recommend you check this series out. Just don't look for it on DVD. I say this because only the first season of Beyond Belief was ever released on DVD. I have no explanation as to why Seasons 2, 3, and 4 were not. But there is good news for those of you who want to view this series online. In 2018, the film and TV distribution company FilmRise acquired the rights to Beyond Belief and have allowed the show to stream on Amazon Prime. And early this year, they have uploaded every episode of Beyond Belief on YouTube. So, if you haven't seen Beyond Belief yet, firstly, I want to apologize for spoiling a couple of the stories. Secondly, please check out this show. I assure you, you will not be disappointed. And for those of you who have seen Beyond Belief, let me know your thoughts on this show. What was your favorite story? Which story scared the daylights out of you? Let me know in the comments section below. And also let me know if you want to see more, well, reviews like this. Until next time, I'm Jab4077, and I'm signing out.